Good afternoon, BookTube. Although it's still technically 11, but it's like 3 minutes to 12, so I'm just saying good afternoon. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. So it is time for another wrap up, and I believe this is the last weekend in January. Although I think February does not come until the middle of the week. So, but it's the last full week of January. So January, I may as well say January is over. It's time for, like I said, it's the last wrap up of the month, and of course, I only finished one book, which let me go grab. I should have grabbed that one. It's no longer on my shelf. Let me go ahead and first talk about the book. The one book I finished, although technically I kind of cheated and I didn't actually read the last section completely. But that's because I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. Because the last part dragged. And I don't know if that's just how classics can feel like at times. Unless you're just really loving the classic. And I didn't hate this one. But I wasn't like, oh my god, this is the best book ever. It was one of these things where, he's a classic author that you just feel like you have to try out. And I bought a handful of his books anyway. So, and that is Thomas Hardy's Jude the Obscure. And I give 2 stars on Goodreads. Although star ratings, do they really, I feel like a star rating is just like, well, I guess for some people they do count. But for me, it's more of an obligation, or more like, I don't want to leave it blank. And it's a good way to organize my books. And I guess it does make people, it gives people, like, okay, if this person gave this a 2-star rating, or 3-star, or 5-star, let me check it out and read why they give that star rating. And that will be a deciding factor if I'm going to give that book or not. But, the writing is good. And I was already warned that Thomas Hardy, like, maybe there's only, like, one book in Thomas Hardy that has a happy ending. I don't know which one it is. It's definitely not this one. It might be Far From the Maddening Crowd, and I haven't bought that one because, I almost bought that one when I finally got a chance to go to the used bookstore, the new one. But, I ended up thinking, I can hold off on this one. I'm just trying out Thomas Hardy, and plus, I've seen the movie, and that's the problem with me. My problem with seeing movies first is not just, oh, they left out stuff, and, or, oh, it's not as good as the book, which I don't think is always true. I think sometimes a movie version, or even a TV show version, is easier to swallow than the book version. Like, I prefer, although to be fair, I've not read this book in a long time, but I prefer the musical movie version of Les Mis over the book. I thought, when I read the book, I thought it was kind of boring. I know that's blasphemous, but I couldn't get into it. And the same thing with Dracula. But there's a chance that if I read them again, I might feel differently, but I haven't had any desire to go buy them or anything. But like I said, seeing the movie version, my problem is that if I've already seen the movie version, then it's like, oh, it's the same, why do I need to read the book? I know what happens. So it's like but I know, before anyone reminds me, I do know that there are a lot of times in movie versions, they leave out stuff, and there's certain details that are in books, and you get, like, descriptions and all that. So I know that. It's just, I can't help but think, especially if it's not a very long book, if it's not like an epic fantasy or an epic family saga or whatever, then, I'm thinking, if it's a simple plot like this, then it's like, it's not that different. I mean, it's a little different, of course. It's gonna be different no matter what. But like, it's like there's not a lot of that. I can't help but feeling like, oh, I'm not missing. Am I making sense? I don't know if I'm making sense or not, but anyway. So this is about the title character Jude, and when he was a little boy, he loved reading. He's very much an academic. He loves learning, and when he's little, his favorite teacher, or his only teacher probably, leaves to go to the scholarly town of Christminster. So Jude promises himself that he's going to study hard, and that's where he's going to go to college. So he grows up and learns Greek, Latin, learns to read the Bible, studies really hard and reads even more. And he's forced to become a stonemason to make money. And then he gets detoured by the beautiful, selfish Arabella, who is a pig farmer's daughter. And she ends up tricking him into marrying her by getting pregnant. And of course, Jude does the honorable thing and marries her. But then they quickly learn that the two of them just don't mesh well together. So she ends up leaving him. They don't legally get a divorce, but she leaves him, goes to Australia, finds new guys. Like, I think there's two other guys that she has a relationship with. And he finally, after a few more years of working in his hometown and marrying as a stonemason, he finally goes to Christminster and goes to and quickly and sadly discovers that because of his poor status, he is not as accepted and taken in to be a student at the colleges in Christminster. And on top of that, he gets sidetracked once again by his cousin Sue Brideshead, who is very passionate, and I personally think she's also a little self-centered. Well, maybe not self-centered because she's a little more, just isn't always considerate of other people. But I think like Arabella's a lot worse and doesn't have any feelings for anybody but herself. But I think there are times when Sue can be like that as well. So anyway, let me finish the summary. And it's all about their relationship, how they connect, and he's trying not to fall in love with her, and his aunt, whom he lived with, tells him that their family is cursed, and he thinks that because they're related, that it will be 10 times worse if the two of them did get together. He runs into his teacher again, who does not remember him because he was just a little boy when he taught him. And it's all about that drama in their complicated relationship and how, despite the fact that he's trying not to fall in love, they do fall in love. And it's about Jude, like, just his life and how he's a lot smarter than his life, than the life he lives. So it was kind of interesting, and I felt sympathetic for the characters. But oh my god, these characters whined a lot. They granted, I don't live in this time. I'm very lucky, so I don't know. Maybe I would, be very miserable if I were in his situation. I do really love that what got my attention, got me interested in this book, is that he was someone who wanted to learn, and I love characters that want to learn and be educated and are passionate about academics. I'm a sucker for those kind of, especially those kind of male characters. In fact, if I read romance more, I would probably be more interested in romance with characters, not not sport romances, but with a character that's more like a scholar or a teacher or something. That would be the kind of romances that would be the kind of romances that interest me. But oh my god, I did not like Arabella or Sue. They kind of got on my nerves. I mean, Arabella, I went back and forth. I didn't know who was worse, but I think in the end that Arabella is worse because she has no empathy for anyone but herself. And at least, yes, I said I feel like Sue was a little selfish too. And she was one of those, she felt, at least to me, she felt like that type of person who is always like, woe is me, oh poor me, I'm such a horrible person, and, is berating herself, but then she still always gets her way. People always fall in love with her and feel sorry for her and want to help her out, and she's very pitiable, and I feel like it's hard to explain, but I feel like there are people that are just kind of manipulative, like not purposely manipulative, but unconsciously they're always like berating themselves and then hoping for pity, wanting people to pity them. And I've known people, I have people in my life that are like that. I've read other characters in fiction that are like that. But it just, like I said, it kind of dragged towards the end. And I don't know if that's, I know that authors got paid by the words that they wrote. If they wrote more words, they got paid more back when these books were published. So I think that's why, like why Tolkien's fantasy books, like he describes he takes a whole page to describe a tree, for instance. I feel like Dickens and Hardy, that's why they would write, the endings would feel so much longer than they need to be. And and obviously I'm a modern reader, so I'm used to, I think that's like why sometimes I struggle, especially with bigger books, because I'm used to reading YA, where it's simple, straight to the point. It doesn't feel like the ending drags. At least the YA fantasy books that I've read. Maybe there are others that do feel like they drag. And okay, so there was one point, I don't know if it was at the end of season 5, what am I saying, season 5, it's not a TV show, at the end of part 5, or maybe the beginning of part 6, was so, oh my god, and not in a good way. I mean, it was very in a traumatizing way. It was like, I think if I were someone that cried during books, I would cry. It was just like, I couldn't do it. It not only dried, but I couldn't do it after that. So I cheated and looked at Spark Notes. Because, this is a classic, and most classics have Spark Notes on, or one of the other cheat things. So I looked at that to see what happens, and it was it's a depressing ending. It's not an appealing ending. It's not like I know, like, it's very realistic, but when I read for escapism. Now, that does not mean of course, I'm not going to give up on Hardy. I want to read some of his other books. Like, every time in mass market paperback, sometimes, they have that list of books to read, British classics and American classics to read. And Tessa de Urberville's, sorry, I can't say that title, is on that list. I'm going to try, and I bought, like 4 Thomas Hardy books. So I want to read them all and try them out, But this one I'm going to donate. I'm probably going to just give it back to, I don't know if I'll probably give it to the other bookstore. Because, now that I know of another bookstore, and that one actually you can get credit for that. You can use, like, what you donate will pay for the books that you will pay at least half for the books that you buy there. So I'm going to be more prone to donate there than here, because it's in a way, it's like I'm getting the books for half the price, even half of what the price of a used copy is. So yeah, it was just too much. And he's like, books like this that are really sad and depressing, or like, whether it's this or something like World War II, I can only read those. I think the key is to not read those all at once. Like, read them, space them out when you read those kinds of books. Because I don't mind sad books, and I like World War II books. Although, I have recently been wanting to, I have been wanting to read other historical things like World War One books instead of World War II books. Now, I'm not talking like the ones on with characters on the front, because I'm just not interested in reading about like soldiers and what they're doing and how sad and how they're getting shot and bloodied up and all that. I don't want to read about that. I want to read about the people that get left behind, or the people that try to help the war effort back home. That's what I want to read about. And of course, as and yes, even though I'm like, I don't read romances, I don't mind reading, I like a romance in a war story. I do like that. But so good. It was an interesting book. It's just very depressing, and it's not one that I gotta admit, it's not one I would read again. Like I said, I'm gonna read all my other Thomas Hardy books. Return of the Native, The Mayor of Casterbridge, Justin D'Urberville's. At some point, maybe I'll get Far From the Maddening Crowd. I think there's one more that I have. I think. Well, maybe this is the other one. But yeah, this is going to be donated. Okay, so that's the only book I've actually finished. So currently, well, let me first talk about, so I decided to officially DNF The Wych Elm. I was debating because I was thinking, maybe I'll buy it, and I had the chance to go. My mom offered to drop me off at Books A Million while she ran errands, and my mom had requested I just get one book because I had bought books recently, and since it's Books A Million, 3 books cost a bit, so it cost quite a bit. So she requested I just get one book, and I decided to honor that request and just get one book. So I did not even put The Wych Elm in my basket of choices, because I grabbed one of those. They have those little buggies, and I always pick out a bunch of books so I can have a choice. So I have all these books to look at. The problem is with our Books A Million, because it's small, so there's not like a little cafe where I can sit. There's just a bench in the back where the magazines and kids' books are. So, but that's okay though. I mean, I don't go there. A lot of times I end up going there just to shop. And so I ended up getting just one book, but I did compensate for it by getting 2 bookmarks. I almost got a Funko Pop though. And I almost got a cheaper edition of the Pickwick Papers. It was one of those nice covers with the drawing on it, with the I would have to show you, but but like they have that whole section near the clearance section where, well, I guess it's part of the clearance section where they have the classics and cooler, more interesting looking editions, not just them as mass market paperback ones or the hard, like with the interesting covers on them. So I almost bought that, and I almost wish I had, but then, it was like, my mom was like, just request I just get one, so I decided, I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna just get one. And I didn't get the Funko Pop, but the Funko Pop is on my Amazon wishlist. And that's actually Dark Willow from Buffy the Vampire Slayer when she goes evil at the end of season 6. Which is, I love Dark Willow. She's awesome. Even though she's evil, she's awesome. So I ended up not getting the Wych Elm, and I decided to DNF it because I didn't even put it in my cart to choose from. And it was taking too long to get to the interesting part. We spent so much time with getting to know the main character, and I just wasn't interested. And, I hadn't even got to chapter 3 of that book. I mean, I agree, Tana French's writing is nice, and if she wasn't writing a police procedural story and was not a series, or if she didn't take as long to get to the interesting stuff, then maybe I would have kept it. Kept going with it. So the other book I actually DNF'd. That wasn't just like I finally decided to DNF. It was Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. Now this does not. I am still interested in Seanan McGuire. I was more interested in the Wayward Children series anyway. Just my library did not have the Wayward Children series. It only had Middle Game there, so I ended up just getting that one. It is interesting. I mean, and it didn't take me as long to read. I mean, I definitely got more into it than the Witch Elm. But it was essentially about this alchemist, Dr. Reed. He creates these two siblings, twin siblings, Roger and Dodger. And Dodger's a girl, by the way, which I think is really weird. They call her Dodger, but there's a reason behind the names that rhyme, the names being rhyming names. I don't remember what it was. He creates them to have, to be geniuses in either the right brain or the left brain. You know how in psychology, one side of your brain is more for the creative thinking, language, comprehension and all that, and then you have the other side of the brain that is more for, logical thinking and mathematics and all that stuff. Well, and so Dodger is more the logical thinker, mathematics, and then Roger is more of the language, and he loves to read. He reads a lot, and they're both geniuses. And he sends them off to different families across the United States, on opposite ends of the United States. And his goal is to become godful. He wants them to help him eventually when they're ready. He wants them to help him find the impossible city, and he wants to become godlike. I don't even know what the heck the impossible city was. I hadn't even got that far where they finally explain what the impossible city is. I don't even know if they do or not. But Roger and Dodger, when they're 9 years old, they end up somehow communicating telepathically. And they help each other with what they are lacking, and they become friends. Of course, they both think the other one is an imaginary friend. And they start communicating. But Dr. Reed finds out, and he's not ready for them to bond. He's not ready for them to connect in that way. He wants to have them to mature and grow separately from each other. So he sends his assistant, whose name I do not remember, to put the fear of God in Roger and make him think and force him to stop communicating with Dodger. And she essentially pretends to be a psychologist and makes him think that if he continues communicating with his imaginary friend, then people will think he's mentally unstable and will take him away from his adoptive parents. And of course, he's a 9-year-old kid and more emotional and more sensitive in his thinking. And he promises to never communicate with Dodger again, and so up until they're teenagers, they have no interactions whatsoever, but then coincidentally they meet again as teenagers in person that time, and she is basically heartbroken and cannot forgive him for not communicating with her and abandoning her, essentially. And I believe the rest of the book is them going back and forth between, them constantly meeting and going about their lives, and Dr. Reed interfering to make sure they don't bond, and it was interesting, and I liked their characters, Roger and Dodger. They were sympathetic. And the one thing that I had the strongest reaction to was when he stops communicating with her, and when they meet again, and she's hurt by him and she can't fully forgive him. On the one hand, what really got me annoyed is I don't like how she was making him feel like you were so dumb for believing that woman, how could you believe her? Or at least you could have been like, okay, I won't communicate with her and then pretend to communicate with me, which I wonder if that would have worked anyway. Because would have Dr. Reed have found out? Because obviously he found out that they were communicating, unless of course the parents reported to him, and that's how he figured it. How he figured it out. I don't know what if he, if people still, if he's an ordinary human where he has to be told these things, or if he can maybe psychically figure he knows or something. So that's why I'm wondering if either would it have worked anyway, even if Roger had lied and said, okay, I'll stop communicating with her. Like, would there be a way for Dr. Reed to find out anyway? Because then, if there was a way to find out, for him to find out either way, then it wouldn't matter. But of course, there's no way Roger or Dodger can know about that. But I just felt so bad for him because he doesn't think the way she does. He's not a logical thinker. He was a 9-year-old boy. He probably thinks the more towards the way most 9-year-old boys would have thought at that time. He wouldn't be clever enough to realize, okay, this is BS, or maybe I can just pretend and lie and just. And he's a very honest he's a very honest person. But at the same time, I can understand her anger also because she is more vulnerable than he is. Being a genius, especially with mathematics, because one, I think kids are going to be a little envious and a little annoyed if someone is a genius in math. It's like, how dare you be smart? It's like, I wish I had your skills, so you know what? I'm going to bully you instead. That's, I'm going to make you feel bad for being smart. Because I don't like how you're smarter than me. I don't like how you're good at math and I can't comprehend it kind of response, like envy. And then the other thing is she's a girl, so it's like, how dare a girl be smart at math? Like, that's not right. A girl shouldn't be smarter than a boy when it comes to math. She's like, girls are dumb and their brains shouldn't be able to comprehend math or something. But, it's funny because I feel like, they would say a woman's place is in the kitchen and taking care of the household, when I feel like a lot of times, especially when it comes to being in the kitchen, we need basic mathematics skills because, you need to be able to measure things and determine how much of something you put in something, and so you need at least a little bit of math skills anyway. So it's just, so I feel like, yes, it's a lot harder, and Roger can hide behind. He doesn't have to constantly, make it obvious that he can hide his reading, his genius skills at language and reading a lot easier than she can. She can't hide her genius at mathematics, and she's always thinking and always trying to solve problems and equations and always logical thinker. So it's a lot harder for her. But that doesn't mean it's not hard for him on some level anyway. Because he's still, in a way, he's still alone. He's surrounded by people and he has a girlfriend, but at the end of the day, they still don't completely connect with him. So a long story short, I do get her anger. So that, but other than that, like, I agree with a lot of reviewers that that Dr. Reed is that mustache twirling cliche villain. I mean, most people, yeah, deep down there can be people that would desire to have that kind of power, but usually there's a motivation. They don't want the power just for the sake of power. Like something horrible happened to them where they realize that life is horrible and sucks and it's not, and it's all screwed up. So they want to, if they have godly power, they can change the world, and, people get tempted. And maybe they would have explained it later on in the book, why he wants it. Or maybe they did already, as far as I got, and I just don't remember what it is. I'm not even sure if he's like Roger and Dodger, or if maybe he was created in a mixing lab or something. I don't know. I don't understand. I know that he was created too. But it was just, I eventually just lost interest. I mean, there was nothing wrong with the book. I just lost interest. And was just disappointed because I couldn't have classified this as a science fiction book that I read, because I finally decided to start using the numbers on my Mac. I don't know if it's a Word thing or a Mac thing. I think it's a Mac thing, because I didn't have it on my Dell or my Dell computer. But So but I discovered using it numbers, and I created like some like doing graphs and pie charts and stuff. So when I don't have any science fiction yet, I have a sci-fi category because I'm not totally dismissing the sci-fi genre this year. I want to try again and read more sci-fi. Try some sci-fi, but I think low sci-fi or sci-fi that kind of blurs lines, which you could argue this would have blurred it, because it's alchemy can be argued to be kind of more fantastical. But I feel like alchemy is a science. It's a medieval science. It's just a version of chemistry. But anyway, yeah, so I DNF'd it. I just lost interest after a while. But it wasn't a bad book, it was just not my cup of tea personally. Okay, so anyway, okay, so I don't know if I showed you guys these books, but first, okay, this is the book I picked that day I went to Books A Million. This is the one book I got, and I don't have, and then the bookmarks I got, I'm kind of using them right now. Well, no, I'm only using one of them. This is one of the bookmarks I got, because I like these bookmarks, because first of all, they don't have the tassels, because the problem with the tassels, they can easily come out of them being held together. These ones, it's a little easier and less chance of losing them. But this says, everything you can imagine is real. Hi, Rascal. I like these. I like how they all, and it's less flimsy because it's cardboard or wood or something. But I guess this is a quote by Picasso, because it says Picasso. I liked it because, of course, I was big on it. I like how it says everything you imagine is real. So, like, if you imagine a unicorn, maybe you'll all of a sudden appear in your backyard. And then the other one I'm using now, the other one I got, so I'll show you guys that one in a minute. But the one book I ended up picking out is this one, Woven in Moonlight by Isabel Ibanez. I don't know if I'm saying her last name right. But this is the one I was most interested in. I mean, although I wonder if I should have picked, because they actually had discount copies of The Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo and Once Upon a River, which I have been wanting to read, and they're on my Amazon wishlist. But this is kind of the one that was on my mind. This is the one I was most excited about at the time. And mostly because of people like Olive from Book Olive, and the way she talked about the book and reviewed it, and the way she described what it's about, it really got me excited. It got me very interested. I think it's a kind of similar plot to, part of the plot is very similar to Star Wars, the prequel series trilogy, with Padme Queen Amidala situation, where one of them was the real princess, was played by Natalie Portman, disguise yourself as a servant, so that, like, she had Keira Knightley, I think it was Keira Knightley played the decoy character, that was masquerading as the princess or the empress, like the queen as Queen Amidala. I think it's that kind of plot too. Let me see. Let me look at the description. Oh, yep, it is the decoy Condessa. Okay, yep. Oh, yeah. So I remembered it correctly. So she is the decoy, and then this guy from a neighboring country wants to marry the Condessa, and she has to essentially go undercover and pretend to be the Condessa and pretend to be his fiance. And she's looking for some kind of relic, and she's using her magic, which is the ability to weave moonlight into tapestries. to send messages to the people, the resistors, the people who are trying to fight the government or something like that. And it's actually inspired by Bolivian politics and history, which is also what got my attention. It's a country I haven't heard of books being inspired by. So it sounded so cool. Oh, and I think Olive also said that the author designed this cover, which I should have said something when I was at Booksmart paying for it, because I remember one of the cashiers was saying it's a beautiful cover, and I didn't even, I was just trying to, because I didn't know when, I did not know when my mom would call and be like, are you ready yet? So I was trying to, pick the book and then pay for it, but so I didn't even think about that, but I should have mentioned that the author, I believe, is the one who designed this cover, I think. This just sounds like such a beautiful story, such an interesting, engaging story. And it's not that long, which is kind of nice. Although I do love tomes. I was actually just thinking about this the other day because Ariel Bassett made a video about how she likes short books, but she wants to start reading more tomes and not be afraid to read those kinds of books. And I like the idea of those, but they are long and a big commitment, and they can be very intimidating. So okay, so I'm going to show you some other books. I don't know if I've showed you guys these books yet. Oh, I think I did show you. Actually, yeah, I did show you this one, I believe, because this is when I got this one, or technically my dad bought this one for me. When we were back up in Maryland again. I got this. It was this along with the copy of the It Blu-ray. Although, you guys, I think I already talked about that story about how it was the first chapter 1 with the digital copy of chapter 2, and that ended up being this big. It's I did not want a digital copy of movie 2. I actually wanted them. I didn't want a computer one that I could download onto my computer. I wanted one I could watch on my Blu-ray player, and I did not have the capability, so there was this whole thing about it. But I got this. Let me see. Let me check. Oh, yay! Yes, it does. It does. See, yay! I like this. I've said this before that I don't like taking the dust jackets off of my books because I understand the annoying aspects of dust jackets, but I don't like them when they're blank. I want something on them to look at when I take off a dust jacket if I read it at the pool or something. So this is Starless Sea by Erin Morgenstern. I finally got it, but I do want to reread The Night Circus. And I don't have to. It's not a series, but I have been meaning to reread The Night Circus. That was one of the first books I read way before I joined BookTube. And so it's not like the first book I ever read or the first book I read via BookTube. It was I read it long before BookTube, and then I remember hearing how people on BookTube really loved it. It was oh, that's so cool, and it's a book I actually read years ago, so it's kind of this moment of, oh my god, so that is so cool, So I wasn't sure if I showed you this. Actually, I think I did, because I think I showed you that I got in chapter 2 on my last wrap-up. Okay, so now I want to show you books I got from the used bookstore. Okay, so first, again, this is another situation where I don't know if I showed you guys these or not. I think I did, but I'll show you guys again, if you don't mind. Okay, so this is a series I saw at the new used bookstore, and I decided to go ahead and buy the first 2 books in the series because there were some classics I wanted to buy. Although I'm also wondering if I should have bought Wives and Daughters instead, or added it to this by Elizabeth Gaskell. But I ended up not buying that one, along with Far From the Maddening Crowd. And maybe it will still be there, I don't know, but I don't know when the next time I'll go to that used bookstore. but because I still have to get a ride from someone. But I'm gonna need to eat soon because my stomach is growling. Okay, so I don't know much about this series. I just saw it had the first book was called The Dragon Prince, so I see dragon. I'm like, ooh, I should check that out. I should have looked at it more, but I mean, it was at a used bookstore, so it was like, $280, and then I got a 50% discount because I brought books in. And I think there's actually a TV show, just an animated TV show that just came out, I believe. Because I didn't look at the video, but I saw Daniel Green did a review of the TV show, so I'm assuming it's this because the show is called The Dragon Prince, so I'm assuming it's this, which is really cool because I just bought it, and it looks like an older, like probably came out in the 80s or 90s. It looks the cover looks very 80s. Like I said, I don't remember. I did read the back. I did. I mean, I usually do when I'm at the store, unless it's one that I've already, I've heard a lot about it. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna buy it, or if it's like an author that I really want to check out. So I got the first one, Dragon Prince. And oh my god, yeah. So this was when Borders was still okay. So this person had this book since the days of Borders bookstore. If you can see, you probably can't really read it, but it's a Borders price tag. And then this is the second one, the Star Scroll. Okay, so the classics I end up getting the rest of the series were Dombey and Son by Charles Dickens. I'm slowly growing my Dickens collection. And I believe what this is about is it's not about Dombey and his son, it's about Dombey and his daughter. And of course, Dombey does not think very highly of his daughter because she's a girl, and he wants to pass on his shop to his son because, and it's about the daughter's life and how her father doesn't give her enough credit because she's a girl, because she has a vagina. And there's, sometimes these classic books have a little quote from the book. Why don't you write like Mr. Dickens, Papa? Asked the young girl. My dear, I wish I could, replied Thackeray. That's funny. There's an actual. But that sounded interesting, although, it wasn't. I was actually more interested in the Curiosity Shop, but I didn't see the Curiosity Shop there. And it was like, oh, Dickens, it's the one that I don't have yet, so that was there. And then the other two, I don't know if I got that one from that used bookstore or from Gibbons, but I think it was a Gibbons purchase because it doesn't have this little white price tag on it. Okay, so the other two I got were Villette by Charlotte Bronte. So I've already read Wuthering Heights. I had Jane Eyre, but I gave that copy to my cousin. I haven't asked for it back. I thought about rebuying it, like buying one of those copies that's in the clearance section, but I haven't got around to it because it's like that's another. I've already read it, so I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to buy it again. I don't need to buy it again, I've already read it, but it is one of my favorite classics, so it's like most people probably think, well, then it's one of your favorites, why don't you rebuy it? And I'm in more of a position than, let's say, some of my friends are as far as financial wise to rebuy books, and this is not that, a paperback copy is not that expensive, although that, and that was in the clearance section anyway, so I probably could. But this is another one, so this is is this? Oh, Emily. I was gonna say it was the one who wrote Wuthering Heights. The sister wrote Wuthering Heights, but no, I think this is the one who wrote Jane Eyre. Because actually there's a blurb by George Eliot, whose book I also have. Her most popular one, Middlemarch, her most well-known one. But this says, still more wonderful book than Jane Eyre. Okay, so I guess this person, George Eliot herself, loved Jane Eyre over this one. Loved this one over Jane Eyre. And by what I've heard about this book, it does sound a little bit more interesting and a little more heartbreaking and less like fairy tale ending-esque. But it's a very similar story about a governess going to take care of some kids, I believe. But I saw this and I figured, I've been hearing a lot about Villette, so I decided to go ahead and buy it. And then I don't know which of the spouse of one of my favorite booktubers is reading this one, but I have another D.H. Lawrence book, Sons and Lovers by D.H. Lawrence. I got that one, so I saw this one and decided to get it, especially because, again, I can't remember which of my favorite one of the booktubers that I watch, her husband, is reading this book, and he says it's alright. So that's kind of what was what filed it away from me, why it was on my mind. And like I said, I already had Sons and Lovers, so decided let me get another D.H. Lawrence books. And again, this is from the used bookstore, so it's only $2.50. So I figured, why not? Why not pick it up and try it out? So, like I said, so must be my favorite word because I use it a lot. I noticed. And of course, I still use a lot. So I thought I would try it. It's not that it was only $2.50, and then I had 50% off of these books, so I paid even less than that. Okay, so those I think were all the books I got from the used bookstore, the new used bookstore. Now this one I think I got from Givens, and that is Tender is the Night by published in 34. No, it is in the 20s. It was published in 34. This is another Fitzgerald, one of his more popular ones. I'm continuing to slowly build my Fitzgerald collection as well. I don't know much about what this one is about. It's Fitzgerald. I love his writing. He writes books in the 20s. And it's a tragic romance between an actress and an American couple. So I guess maybe they have a really weird relationship. Reading the back. So maybe it's like a weird love triangle situation. Oh, and it's compared to a modern Orpheus. If you guys are familiar with that Greek play. I don't know if I don't know if that's a tragedy or not. I'm assuming it's a tragedy. But so again, this is one of the situations where I've heard about this book. Ceremoniously with Fitzgerald. It's one of his more well-known novels. I don't know if it's popular or not. I'm wondering if he's another author whose books just end unhappily. Because I don't know. I've only read The Great Gatsby, so I don't know. Maybe his other books won't end miserably or bittersweet or whatever. But yep. So now let's get to what I bought today. Okay. Well, first, before I get to that, let me just. I'm working on Woman in Cabin 10. I'm still working on my first Ruth Ware book, and unfortunately, this is the only Ruth Ware that was at Givens today because I did look for some more Ruth Ware. It's like, I already have this, and I'm not gonna buy it because I don't know. Yes, I like it, but I feel like with thrillers, unless you really liked it, unless you really loved the story, you don't need to read them again. I mean, once you know, you know. You know what happened. So it's like the mystery is gone. The thrill could potentially be gone unless you just, you really love it. I mean, like, but this is about a woman who is a writer for, is it a column? Does it say? She writes for a magazine, a travel magazine, and she finally gets the chance to go to write her first piece, major piece, and get a promotion. And this piece involves the premiere of, that's not the word, premiere is not the word I'm looking for, but of this Norwegian cruise line has just opened up, and she gets to go on this cruise. And unfortunately, her personal life is not going that great right now. She's having issues with her boyfriend, who's also a travel writer. And in the beginning of the book, she gets burglarized. And it really traumatizes her. And she's she's angry at her boyfriend for not being there when that happened. And she's also a bit of an alcoholic, which I'm wondering if that is a theme in a lot of thrillers, domestic thrillers or thrillers where a female character is the center of the story, because it's an easy way to show that a narrator is unreliable is if they're an alcoholic, because they might, be drunk all the time and stuff like that. So it's like, how can you trust them if they're drunk? And I do remember in like 2017 or 18, there was a surge of people talking about that is a common theme in these kinds of books, to have the unreliable narrator being an alcoholic. And I don't know if it was just a coincidence. I have to look it up, but I'm wondering if Ruth Ware was the one who wrote Girl on the Train. I don't know though if it's her or not, but the main character they kind of seem very similar. Now, I haven't read the book, I'm going by the movie, of Girl on the Train. But yeah, she also was an alcoholic, so I don't know if it's just a coincidence, and like I said, at the time when all these thrillers were coming out, that had similar titles, they all turned, I think I heard that there was a surge of, that they all were alcoholics. But I could be totally wrong here. But anyway, and so she looks at going on this cruise as like the best thing, a good opportunity for her. And when she gets there, one night she hears a scream. She sees blood on the screen that separates her room from the next room over. And she remembers meeting a girl in the next room and getting Maybelline mascara from her. But she is not, like, all the crew are accounted for, and, so are the passengers. And of course, they don't necessarily believe her that it actually happened, because there's no evidence to prove that this woman actually was a real person and that this event actually happened. I am liking it. It's definitely interesting. It's a very fast read. I am wondering, and I am definitely intrigued. I'm wondering, is our main character, our narrator, is she crazy? Is she actually imagining things? Or maybe did something really happen? Maybe maybe one of the passengers, like Mr. Bulmer has a teenage daughter he brought on the cruise with him. That's my first theory, that maybe that's his daughter, that's his teenage daughter, or like his mistress or something. Actually, that might be bad. That might be more that she's like his mistress because his wife is sick. I believe his wife has cancer, and she's dying, so maybe he has a mistress on the side because he's sick pervert. He's like, well, I don't know though. I'm just theorizing here, so I don't. We haven't really spent a lot of time with this guy, and although he is devoted to his wife, it seems like. But maybe because he's only human, he can't handle it and he has a mistress. Like I said, that's just my theory. Or, like I said, it could be maybe our main character is really crazy. After all, I don't know. I think that's the question that with these kind of stories, that's always the question: is the main character crazy or not? Is she really seeing things, or is she projecting her own issues on the situation? But I definitely am eager to find out what happens. Like, I feel like that's what mysteries, they kind of make you intrigued and pull you in. But for me, the reason why I don't seek them out that often and why I'm just getting into the genre is I'm always worried that they're going to be formulaic and boring, which I know they're called thrillers, so why would a thriller be boring? But I feel like if a thriller is formulaic and the plots are always very similar to each other, then it's like it could easily lose the thrill, because especially if you read so many of them at once. Like, I feel like The Women's Murder Club by James Patterson lost the thrill a little bit towards the halfway through, because he wrote a lot of books. After, like, I think there were like 11 or 12 in that series. Plus, a guy that I was pursuing dating, he had told me that James Patterson no longer writes his own books, and that kind of annoyed me a little bit. And because there's people like Brandon Sanderson and Stephen King who crank out books a lot too, but as far as I know, they write their own books. They don't have a ghostwriter. But maybe they do, I don't know. But yep, I'm really liking this. I am, like, it's funny though, because before I was interested in thrillers, before I got the book I got for Christmas, because that's what got me to decide to check out Ruth Ware, because my sister, actually it was a gift for my nephews, but they're 4 and 2 years old, so they're not going to be actually physically buying the book. My sister physically is the one that bought it. Or it could have been very well my brother-in-law. Although I think it was my sister, because the little note on the tag made me think that might have been my sister who was with them when they quote unquote bought it. So yeah, when you guys saw that on my Christmas haul, so I decided, this is the one I decided, because it was the only one at the library. I was about to say Books A Million at the library. It was which it's funny because before that, I saw some Ruth Ware books, and I did pick them out to look at them. I saw In the Dark, Dark Wood, but at the time I was like, oh, I'm not interested. And now, the only Ruth Ware book I've seen there is this one. I'm like, I have this book. I don't want to, I don't have it, but it's a library. I have the library copy, so I'm reading the library book. And then it's not like I'm going to want, like I said, I feel like once you know the mystery, then you're not going to, then there's no point in keeping it. At least to me, anyway. Okay, so that's the other book I'm focusing on. I haven't started Flashback yet, but I need to read that one soon because I have Legacy already. Let me see when the return date is. February 8th. Oh, that's when the other book, I think. Or no, the other one, the original date for Legacy was actually, I think, February 3rd. So February 8th is when those books are due back, and I hadn't even started Legacy, or I haven't even started Flashback yet, so I need to start that one so I can start Legacy. But first I'm going to finish that one. But those are the Keeper of the Lost Cities books. There's this one, and then, although this one looks a little chunkier. Flashback looks chunkier. Like, thicker than that one. I always love the covers of these books. All the... I was like these covers are really cool. And if they ever made this into an on-screen adaptation, I could see this being inspiration for if they made it into animated. But yeah, I need to start this one and then this one. I need to read this one and then I can start with this one. So I'll probably end up having to renew this one. The good news is I get through these quickly, even if they're really long. I mean, although the last book took me quite a while because it was 91 chapters. But on the floor. Okay, almost done updating you guys. Okay, so wait, okay, where? Crap. Oh, wait. Oh, no, that's right. I put it in my purse. I thought, oh, wait, where are the books I just bought? These are the books I decided to pick out to bring with me to start reading. I need to get back into this one. I want to read at least a little bit of it before January's over because I think I'm going to participate in the Classics Community Buddy read of War and Peace. And that's another chunk of a book. It's Count of Monte Cristo, if you can't see. And after reading Hardy, I decided I'm going to start finally reading Trollope now that I have 6 books, although I noticed I started ripping the dust jacket. The good news is these are not, if I took off the dust jacket, at least they're not blank. I mean, there's nothing on the cover. There's still nothing on there, but it's not like a solid, it has a design on it. But, which reminds me, the other bookmark that I ended up buying is this one. And this is one of the ones with the tassels, but I liked what it said. I like big books that cannot lie. Which I would love for someone to do like a parody with that song, but the original song, like an actual parody with that. But anyway, okay, so finally here are the books that the other ones, well, I guess it doesn't matter. So the other ones I ended up buying were, I bought 3 books. First is I picked out another one of her books, but I decided to get this one instead. And the plot kind of reminded me a little bit of that book I saw, about the guy who becomes a bookbinder, but really it's not about literally it's not actually about binding books, it's about binding memories into books. It's me along those lines. If you don't want to remember something, you can put it in this file away in this literal book. The plot kind of reminded me of that a little bit. So it also kind of reminded me of that Johnny Depp movie, Ninth Gate, which there's a book that movie was based on, that I almost bought that book, but then I was reading the reviews on Goodreads, because I actually read the reviews. I don't just look at the star rating, I read the reviews, and they were saying the book was not that great, unless you're a fan, and I think it was, unless you're a fan of Dante's Inferno or Paradise, no, I think it was Dante's Inferno that it was about, but the plot kind of reminded me of that as well, reading the description. Especially because our main character is also a rare book expert, like the main character in Ninth Gate. And plus, look at that cover; it's so pretty. I think that cover is really pretty. The blue and the gold. Although I don't know what the image is supposed to be. And then I ended up buying this. So I recently I think I had added these to my Amazon wish list, so now I can take them off. But this is 2 more Daphne du Maurier books. This is Jamaica Inn and My Cousin Rachel, because I read Rebecca and I absolutely loved it. These are not the editions I would have chosen for myself, but they were the ones that were at Givens, and I was like, I'm not going to miss out on that. So, especially because they're going to be really cheap. Although they still might be cheaper on Amazon, but I bought them, so. from what I know about, I don't know what Jamaica Inn is really about. I'm guessing whatever Jamaica Inn. That's what it's about. The inn, this inn. Um, but from what I know, that My Cousin Rachel is about this guy that he finds out his cousin is married to this woman named Rachel, but then he mysteriously dies, and Rachel comes to stay with him because now our main narrator is the only family she has left. By marriage, she comes to stay with him, and from what I got from the trailers of the movie version, something happens where he ends up becoming obsessed with her as well, and we don't know if she did something to him, she manipulated him, drugged him, or something like that. No, and like I said, I'm going by the previews of the movie, and it just looked really interesting and really creepy. So, and I've heard a lot about Daphne. I loved Rebecca, and I've heard quite a bit about these books. And I also have her other book, Marianne, so now I have a complete collection of her books, at least the ones that I'm aware of. There might be more, I don't know. But those are the 3 books I ended up getting at Giffens. So that is my wrap up for the last week in January. If you guys like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, click subscribe. If you haven't already, I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. Alright, bye!